Hi, welcome to Arkintel. Everyone keeps saying it. AI is taking jobs, industries are being automated, and workers are being replaced by algorithms. But the truth hiding behind the numbers tells a different story. One, most people never see coming. Because between January and September 2025, employers announced 946,426 layoffs. And the pattern behind those cuts doesn't fit the AI explanation at all. And here's the part that raises serious questions. The sectors announcing the biggest losses aren't the ones leading in automation. They are the ones that should be the safest. And when the safe jobs start disappearing first, it usually means something else is happening, something deeper, something economic, and something that companies aren't saying out loud. Once you break down the cuts, the pattern becomes unmistakable. In retail, companies have announced 86,233 layoffs, a 203% surge from last year, a sign of weakening foot traffic and cautious shoppers. Manufacturing has also taken a hit, with companies trimming their workforces as higher production costs and weaker demand make it harder to keep operations running at full capacity. But this isn't isolated to one country. In Germany, Bosch, one of the nation's industrial giants, announced 13,000 job cuts as its automotive operations struggle with electrification costs and lower exports. In India, Novo Nordisk revealed plans to cut 9,000 positions globally, with impact on its Bengaluru business services hub. And in France, ExxonMobil is downsizing by 16% of its local workforce, cutting more than 200 jobs as part of a restructuring effort. And then the most alarming figure, the public sector. Long considered the stabilizer of the economy, it has cut 299,755 jobs this year, more than 4 times last year's total. When government jobs disappear before private sector cuts peak, it usually hints at a deeper structural stress that hasn't yet showed up in official recession calls. It's tempting to blame artificial intelligence. It's simple, dramatic, and convenient. It gives companies an easy explanation, and it gives the public a villain that feels futuristic and unstoppable. But the numbers don't support that story. As of October in 2025, companies have attributed 48,414 layoffs to AI, a small fraction of a total despite all the fear around automation. If automation were truly driving a global labor shift, you would expect a surge in productivity, a clear sign that machines are suddenly doing far more work than humans. Yet, the latest official reading shows productivity growing 3.3% in Q2, a perfectly normal increase rather than the kind of explosive leap you would associate with a technological revolution. Q4 data isn't fully released yet, but early estimates show ordinary movement, not a dramatic spike. Global surveys show that only about 23% of organizations report they are currently scaling AI systems in at least one business function. The rest? They are still drawing plans, testing prototypes, running pilot programs, and trying to figure out whether these systems even make financial sense. Many list 12 to 24-month implementation timelines, meaning their AI tools aren't even online yet, let alone replace thousands of workers. What this shows is something important. The layoffs happening right now don't match the rhythm of automation. They match the rhythm of economic pressure, companies reacting to shrinking margins, uncertain demand, and rising costs, not to machines taking over the factory floor. The story isn't about AI swallowing jobs, it's about economies tightening and workers caught in the middle. Three forces visible across major economies are driving these layoffs. First is economic uncertainty. The CEO Economic Outlook Index has fallen to 69, its lowest level in years. Hiring plans have weakened across major markets, and a growing share of executives expect to reduce staff rather than expand. When leadership confidence drops to these levels, layoffs almost always follow. Second is rising costs. Trade tensions and tariffs are driving up input prices. Global forecasts expect growth to ease from about 3.3% in 2024 to around 3.1% in 2025, with higher import costs cited as a key drag. Industries reliant on materials like metals, electronics, and machinery are feeling the squeeze, and many are cutting jobs to protect margins. Third is weakening consumer demand. Consumer confidence has slipped to 94.6, and households are increasingly stressed, with credit card delinquencies rising to some of the highest levels seen in years. Slower spending is showing up across markets, from Europe's fragile retail activity to softer demand in major emerging economies. When consumers hesitate, companies react, and that reaction almost always begins with layoffs. Blaming AI makes these cuts feel inevitable, as if no policy, no reform, no economic strategy could change the outcome. But the data points elsewhere. Slowing consumer demand, rising costs, shrinking budgets, and weakening confidence. If policymakers around the world misread the cause, they will focus on reskilling and automation preparedness, while ignoring the real vulnerabilities actually driving the downturn. And that's the danger. When leaders assume the problem is technology, they plan for a future that isn't here yet, while overlooking the pressures that are already reshaping the job market today. Companies aren't firing workers because machines suddenly became cheaper. They are firing workers because margins are tightening, demand is softening, and uncertainty is rising. Those are economic problems, not automation inevitabilities. One narrative leads to resignation, the other leads to solutions. Several trends suggest the pressure isn't finished. Job openings have fallen sharply from their pandemic-era peak to about 7.2 million today, a clear sign that labor demand is cooling. Global corporate revenue growth is expected to remain modest, a far cry from the rapid, double-digit rebound many companies experienced in the years immediately after COVID. And even the public sector, usually the last to cut, has begun announcing reductions across different regions, showing that budget pressures are no longer isolated to private industry. None of these shifts resemble an AI-driven restructuring. They point instead to economies becoming more cautious, more uncertain, and more risk-averse, with workers feeling the impact long before the full story shows up in the official data. This movement isn't about robots replacing workers overnight. It's about the quieter forces shaping the world, the pressures that build long before anyone calls a recession. AI makes for an easy headline, but it distracts from the real story. Why companies are scaling back, why households are spending less, and why governments are tightening their budgets. Because the future of work won't be shaped by fear or hype. It will be shaped by how clearly we understand what's happening today. If you found this video insightful, make sure to check out No One Wants to Work Anymore. In this video, we uncovered the real reasons behind America's labor shortage, from stagnant wages and soaring living costs to burnout, quiet quitting, and a generational shift in how people view work, and explain how decades-long trends and baby boomer retirements are reshaping the workforce. Click the video to watch now.